For men who are in between being modern and traditional, you know what I mean? For men who are logical about having to acclimate to the society that we live in and the times that we're in, while still being a man of the Judeo-Christian faith, right? When you're of that faith, and there's certain ways that you view relationships or certain things that you may notice when you're studying the Bible and you're studying different aspects of relationships, there are certain things you may come across if you look beyond just the surface of what society tells you the Bible actually says. Right? Like for me personally, I look at it kind of from a perspective of, you have the cultural aspects that are within the law or the Torah, you know, and then you also have the legal aspects that are like considered sins. And then you have like there's the cultural, like the times, the situational things. And then you also have the spiritual ramifications of things, or property rights. You also have to understand that as well. And then also just things that benefit towards the future, right? Things that have benefit. Now, an ounce of prevention can be worth a pound of cure, but you still need a pound of cure, right? We live in a society where there is female sexual empowerment, right? And men no longer have legal ownership or possession over their women. And I don't completely think that's a bad thing, right? I don't completely think it's a bad thing. I think that it's great that a woman can go make her own money, because what if a man just leaves her high and dry? Like, what's she gonna do then? What if the only person who can pay her bills is a tyrannical person who is going to constantly abuse her, right? What if it's a man who's going to be constantly like cheating on her, even on the down low, bringing home STDs, constantly making babies outside the home, and bringing in, getting hit with child support for new women he has with her all the time by other women, and then just being in a position that's just not beneficial to any kind of quality of life, right? Some of those things is fucked up. I'm just gonna put it real plain and simple to you. There are scenarios in which it is definitely beneficial that a woman can make her own money, right? There are situations in which a woman is not going to be a virgin, right? She's not. Like in most instances of women you come across in this day and age, they are not going to be virgins. They're not going to be, some are, some aren't. But chances are they're not going to truly be under the authority of their father. Some of them aren't even going to have a father. And some of them aren't even going to be in their parents' homes. So this is a completely independent person who is an adult who makes their own choices. And we live in a society where we're one part sexually repressed and one part sexually liberated. And most of that sexual liberation isn't for the purpose of integrating into a committed relationship where you're sexually compatible. Most of that liberation and that freedom is being used towards becoming overstimulated, from picking up a lot of baggage, including children by other men, which can be baggage. I'm sorry to tell it to you. You can turn that into damn near a positive. Like if your body snaps back into shape, you're a good mother, you know how to prioritize things, and you know how to maintain your sex drive even while having a child and maintaining your priorities. Now, having the ability to do that can make you attractive for a lot of men. Some men are just going to say no just because you have a child in the first place. But some men are going to say, okay, cool. I already know she knows how to handle certain things. She still knows how to treat me like a man, but she still knows how to take care of her business. I'm like, all right, boom, I can deal with that. You know, a lot of men would have that mentality. Now, me, I don't have any children. So chances are I'm not going down that route. Chances are. But just because those are the chances doesn't mean that I never would under any circumstance or pretense. That's not true either. I've met cool women who had children, and the children itself wasn't the reason I couldn't be with them or wouldn't be with them. Understand what I'm saying? Now, What we also have to understand is that the social contract around sex is dead, right? It's dead. It's out the water, right? It used to be a matter of a man a court a woman, meet her parents, right? She wouldn't spend time alone with men of the opposite sex, right? She wouldn't be doing that. And then they would get married, might even be arranged, and then she might lose her virginity then. Or that's on the high end. On another end, it may just be she may be afraid of the social shame and social stigma that could come with, being known as a promiscuous woman. So she may not engage in those behaviors and truly want to get to know a guy before she engages in sexual activity. That's another type of woman, right? Then you have another type of woman who is going to play the cat and mouse game and pretend that she's not that way, right? For the general public, and then she's going to just do her thing, and then she's just going to lie about it or be misleading about her sexual past. Then there's going to be another woman who's going to take a neutral stance. She's just not going to talk about it, and she's not going to give you a real answer about what it is either. And then you have the women who are just, and that'd be a rare woman who's just open and unashamed about it, right? Or back in the day, that would sometimes be like the sex workers. Now, there are spectrums of women when it comes to this, and the truth about this day and age is that oftentimes quality women are not going to just be the virgins, and there are issues that come with dealing with the woman who's a virgin. Right? Now, if we're going to look at this from a biblical perspective, first thing I want to address is that the word fornication, zana in the Hebrew, and pornuo in the Greek, when you go into the older Strong's concordances and you're looking at the definitions and you're looking at the history of the word fornication and how it comes from the Latin word fornix or fornicatio, right? Or fornicatio, which means fornix, which is arches, where prostitution used to take place, right? Then fornication would be a certain aspect of prostitution, which would be selling your body, right? But then another aspect of it would be to understand that a lot of what marriage used to be about was a certain aspect of a woman being sold as a whole, right? If we're looking at the Bible, there is the bride price, then there's the virgin bride price, right? But I'll take a step back to the fornication thing. Most of the things listed under fornication are merely about adultery. And if you even look at the context of adultery in the Bible, it's very rare, if not going to happen, that you're going to see adultery, including a man who is not married, sleeping with a woman who's not married. The context of that is always going to be, most of the time, it's just going to be a woman who's married having sex with any man other than her husband. But when you look at it like that, then you have to take a step to the side and say, well, what constitutes a man being her husband? Some people want to take the scripture literal in the essence of saying that marriage is sex, or that would also be maybe metaphysical or contextual, because there are some contexts in the Bible that include going into a woman being the sign of marriage, right? But that's not the society that we live in. Those are not the women that we're going to come across, right? And a good bit of the women who will give the impression that they are a woman who is a virgin oftentimes are women who may have either broken their own hymen through sports activities or purposefully, right? Or with toys, or did that on her own time, right? So the whole concept of wanting to check behind on a woman's virginity through her hymen and shit, that's not really an accurate thing to do. Like just her bleeding on you the first time. But let's say you're not blessed. I've heard women say before that they had sex with a dude who wasn't packing. So the dude wasn't even able to break their hymen. So technically they could go to the next guy and say that they were a virgin because their hymen wasn't broken. Right? I've heard stories like that. Also women breaking their own hymens, or they're having to do the sports or bicycle riding, or a variety of things. Also, there are women who are taken advantage of at a young age, and there's a lot of them who are preyed on. And that's a real factor to think about as well. But a good bit of the women who will give the impression that they're virgins are not are technical virgins, or are not virgins. And they're rare and few and far between. But what we also have to understand is that in this day and age, we have the existence of the time-wasting woman. Right? The time-wasting woman. Now, although two unmarried people having sex wasn't under the strict definition of what fornication was, based off of the zana and the pour nouveau and the word studies behind that and the context of those circumstances and situations, at the least, it was just something that was frowned upon due to society, right, and cultural things, right? At the least, that's what it was. You know, because you would have the property rights thing going on, where if you took a woman's virginity, you pretty much, they didn't have birth control like that. So you either had to, like, this is what you would have to do. If you took a woman's virginity back in the old Hebrew days of how they did things in the Bible, and this is talked about in, like, I believe Deuteronomy, maybe Deuteronomy 22 or Deuteronomy 24. I think Deuteronomy 22, right? You would have to go to the father, right? And you would have to present yourself with the bride price or the virgin price, right? And the virgin price would be higher than a non-virgin, but you'd have to pay that virgin price, right? And when you'd pay that virgin price, then if the father didn't like you, he would send you on your way. And if the father did like you, you had to marry his daughter and assume the authority of taking care of her if you seduced a woman. Now, look at the factors included in this. Look at the factors included in this. We live in an era where, one, the woman isn't under the authority of her father in most instances. Not for real. Right? Even if she's in his household. A lot of women aren't in their father's household. They're adults. Right? 3, they're not virgins. So there's no virgin price. 4, chances are they have no dowry to offer. In the instance that you were to pay the bride price and their father liked you and you married them. You get what I'm saying? The factors in which there was repercussions, because there was no emission of sin without the shedding of blood. You understand what I'm saying? But there was no sacrifice that had to be given for two people who were not married having sex with one another. Now, there were instances where there was a punishment, right? And all the time what that punishment was if a woman was betrothed to marry a man, they had not yet consummated the marriage, and then she sleeps with someone else while she's betrothed to him, then that would be one of those things right there. I think they would call that playing the harlot. So that would be cheating. So let's say you're in a relationship and you're engaged and then you cheat on your boyfriend, then that would be considered fornication, because it would be during the betrothal period. That would be defrauding, because that's a man who's already paid the bride price or the virgin price or whatever it is, and then he was defrauded of his property rights. And when women did that, they would be stoned to death. That's not going to happen in this day and age. There are no true repercussions for it, except for just leaving the woman. Another thing to think about as well is this. Back in the day, a woman really only had pretty much 2 shots. Sometimes it was more, but for the most part, it was 2 shots to get it right with a husband. Which means the first man you have sex with, that's your husband. Right? If he dies or he puts you away, right, then you might be able to marry another man. And if that fails, then you're pretty much ostracized. Right? If he had a real reason for divorcing you. But I think oftentimes, one thing sometimes what people miss when they're talking about sex in the Bible is that if you want to take it that very literal perspective, or in that definition of seeing marriage as sex, and I don't completely see it that way. If you want to see it that way, then whoever a woman had sex with the first time is her husband. And unless he's dead, she's still married to him. Right? And as she's still married to him, every man she has sex with afterwards is adultery. Like, read your Bible if you really want to look at what the context is. Another thing is in the Bible, men had multiple wives. That was never something that was looked down on. It was never something that was told as a law that one shouldn't do it. There's only 2 instances that hint towards saying that a man shouldn't have multiple wives, right? One was when Paul was talking to, I believe, the church of Corinth. I believe it was the church of Corinth. I could be wrong. And he was saying how a man who aspires towards the office of bishop should have one wife. And some can look at that definition and say first wife, which means he should have his first wife with him. And he can have multiple wives, but he needs to have his first wife, or he can only have one wife. But that's the only instance of context in the New Testament. And then the Old Testament, it was do not multiply wives upon yourself, lest your heart be drawn away from God, which is either an aspect of how much drama you would have to go through with a whole lot of women, right? Or it'd be a matter of marrying women of different cultural backgrounds and religious and spiritual beliefs, and then them swaying your heart towards other gods, like what happened to Solomon. And he had 700 wives, 300 concubines. All of the major fathers of the faith, except for, I think, Joshua or Joseph, it was somebody, I don't remember exactly which one it was, but in every single major father of the faith, outside of like 1 or 2, had multiple wives. There's even an instance in the Old Testament where when David was being reprimanded for the adultery he committed with Bathsheba, another man's wife, and had her husband killed to get her, that was adultery, right? Or how he went about what he did. But he was reprimanded in saying that if you wanted more wives, I would have given you more. And what did he have? At least like 8 wives in the Bible. Look at the context of how all this stuff is going. But men also had concubines, right? Concubines. Now, what was a concubine? That would be like a side chick. Or that would be like maybe your wife had a maid servant. She wasn't qualified to be the wife, but she still was somebody who you're dealing with. Now, oftentimes in this day and age, the women didn't have the ability to provide for themselves. So being a concubine often also came with financial provision. Right? It also came with that. But these women have their own money now. And I think there was a thing saying like in the last days or whatever it is in those days, 7 women will cling to one man saying, I have my own bread. Just make me your wife to, reproach my shame. You know what I mean? And that's how it be. And I heard some people say it kind of looks and feels that way in Atlanta sometimes, in places like that. Right? They say the pickings are slim. That's what they say. And I don't know if that's completely true, but it probably is. Now, when we're looking at this particular type of thing, I think the closest thing we can represent a concubine to in this day and age is a girlfriend. Right? I'd say it's a girlfriend. Right? Because the girlfriend doesn't have the full social esteem of a wife, but she's still a woman that it is known that you deal with. Right? And oftentimes she may be secondary to your primary wife, or she may have came along with a wife that already had. And you know what? That's really some player stuff though. Like, not completely, but a little bit. Because, like, if you look at like the stories in the Bible, like what was it, Rachel and Leah, or stories of like Hagar and Sarah. And Sarah was pretty much begging Abraham to lay the wood to Hagar. He knew she was gonna get pleasure out of it. He knew he was gonna get pleasure out of it. She was probably a fine, young, attractive woman who was her maid servant. And she suck him on her, or she sick her on him, and likewise to make something happen to get it popping, because the family or the growth or that generation, that legacy was more important than just ownership over the man section, right? Now, some will say you saw what came out of that. But, you know, what's his name? Ishmael was blessed as well. Now, when we're looking at these different instances in the Bible, we have to understand that when did God ever reprimand these men for having multiple wives? Because I know sometimes people look back at the Adam and Eve thing, and it's like, who the fuck else was Adam supposed to marry outside of Eve if there was the first two people here? Right? That's if that's the narrative you want to go with. If that's how you believe how that went down. You know what I mean? If you don't, I'm not mad at you. You know, that's your business. But I'm just saying, if that's how you want to go with it, if that's where you want to take the argument, you're supposed to marry one of his daughters, right? Some wild stuff. So, really, I think that this culture of the girlfriend thing is more of the concubine thing. Because when you're looking at the Bible, when do you see a woman who is not a virgin being qualified as a wife? Right? How often do you see that? I don't think it's very common. I do not think it is. And do I think that a woman has to be a virgin to be a wife? No. But I think that one way of coping with or dealing with or accepting and embracing the society that we're currently in is shifting our value system with the women that we deal with and the way that we're viewing these encounters and situations. The logical man sees things going on. Like you're aware, you might be red pill aware, such a quote unquote. You know what I mean? You might be a guy who sees what's going on out here, right? And you see how trying to take a traditional blue-pilled mentality into dealing with women is something that can have negative effects for you and negative outcomes with your relationships. You may notice that, right? And if you notice that, then you kind of got some choices to make, right? Either you can be the guy who's constantly online trying to be sexually judgmental towards women in this day and age, talking about body count, scaring women off, right? Because you're sexually judgmental, still trying to have sex with the women, right? Then judging them for what they do with you. And saying this one is a hoe because I hit it on the first night, but this other one right here, she not a hoe because she made me wait till marriage. So you really want to choose a woman based off of her lack of attraction and desire to you? Because you can't truly confirm nor deny what she did outside of you, like before you. You don't know. You don't know. So what do you shift your focus to? What do you shift your mentality to? You shift it to compatibility. You shift it to her showing you wifely qualities without having the title of wife. Because a woman can easily bait and switch you, right? So you want to see that over a period of time. Instead of thinking that submission is some type of it's a command in the Bible that a woman has to do, and think that you could just take the book and that Bible scripture and shove it down a woman's ass and that she's going to just automatically be some feminine, submissive woman. It doesn't work like that. I look at that scripture for me and I say, I need to make myself desirable for this outcome. I need to be a man that when a woman deals with, she feels like it's just naturally something that comes out of her to be submissive towards me. Right? That's how I look at it. So it's not just a matter of just expecting things and not having the reciprocal value to experience the things that I desire. It's more so about me saying that I'm not going to put so much focus on things that I can't control, things that I can't see, things that happened before. It's not impossible that those things may cause us to be incompatible, right? But if I'm focused on our own compatibility and getting behind her social mask and getting behind her social programming and getting behind that guard that women put up to try to protect themselves when it comes to men who they make rules for, into being the man that she's willing to break rules for. Rules are made for some and broken for others. Now, for me, it's like this, right? I'm not someone who's super quick to just charge a woman all the time, right? That would have to be some crazy level of disrespect, and most of the time I don't deal with that. But once a woman has sex with another man, then that pretty much voids that arrangement that you have, right? Unless you choose to have a different type of arrangement where you're cool with that. Because some men are cool with that. You're not the one who's financially responsible for her right now, right? She's financially responsible for herself. So some aspect of that property rights and possessiveness perspective is falling on deaf ears, and it don't really matter, right? I like to switch my thinking more so from the quantity of men that a woman's been with to how far she's been taken sexually and emotionally in her experiences, right? How integrated she's been in her choices, right? And if she has the ability to treat me the way that I like being treated. That's what I focus on. That doesn't mean women don't tell me their body counts, that I don't know their body counts. But I'll tell you this, a woman could have been with two men, and one of those guys, she gave her heart and soul to, and her body. And if you can't take her beyond that place, then for you, she's overstimulated. She may not be overstimulated for me, but for you, she's overstimulated. But a woman could have been with, God forbid, 50 guys, right? That would fuck some dudes' egos up. She could have been with 50 dudes, and none of them gave her a vaginal orgasm for penetration. Not a one. She could have fucked 20 dudes, never had an orgasm in her life. Right? She could have had sex where no emotions was involved at all. On her side. She could have never experienced a man with any type of leadership skills. So she defaulted into being masculine, or she defaulted into being dominant, or she got played over. And if a woman builds a pattern and a habit of behaving that way, it can stick with her. It can. For some women, they're not going to get out of it. They're never going to get out of it. Right? But for some women, they just ain't came across the right guy yet. Now, there's things that you can avoid if you want to avoid it. I get you. But for the most part, a woman being submissive with you has more to do with how you carry yourself than what your religion is. I believe we live in a concubine culture. You know, sometimes I say this in a joking way, where I say a woman has to be my hoe before she's my housewife. But what I mean by that is, one, I'm not looking for a woman who's a virgin. Right? I'm not looking for that. Because my vetting process is different than that I think would be right for me to be actively looking for virgins to carry it out with. Because she may be overstimulated. If we don't work out, she need to move on and do something else. That's me trying to be a little compassionate towards it. Maybe that sounds arrogant, but that is somewhat how I think. But then we have the circumstance of, it's rare to find a virgin even if you wanted one. So based on that whole context of the bride price, the virgin price, you deal with women who are independent, they take care of themselves. So they don't need your provision in order to survive. Now you get married, then cool. Today we live in what I call a concubine culture. In concubine culture, a woman, she comes into your life for the time being, she a concubine. Right? For the time being, that's what she is. Right? And she has to work her way up the ladder. I don't remember if it was Ruth or Boaz, but somebody told somebody to go uncover his feet. And that's often a euphemism for sex in the Bible. Right? Send her to go have sex with a guy. They wasn't married. Right? But she ended up getting a man out of it. What we got to understand is that for women who are not virgins, for women who do not have that authority system structure already there, right? For women who do not have a dowry, right? For women who were not raised and entrenched in this culture before they got into an older age where all the things that were prerequisites have already been passed and have far gone. And now she wants to do better. How many times have you or you've known of women who are playing the role of being celibate or a born-again virgin when they've ran the streets, and then after they run the streets, they want to find them a nice guy, the gentleman gigolo complex. Oftentimes, religious shame and religious indoctrination can play a big part in that gentleman gigolo complex. So she oftentimes won't even be able to truly, what people call, pair bond with you. It's not because of the number of men she's been with. It's because she's just experienced better than you already, and she's not excited about what you do. You don't touch her on a level, and she doesn't feel you on a level that she's already felt a man. So dealing with you is for the logical decision of what she's going to get out of it. And if you come into a situation and you're already offering long-term commitment, you're already offering a marriage to a woman who's not a virgin and has none of these things that were listed, then oftentimes you're setting yourself up for a woman to pretend that she's not a certain way so that you will be willing to engage with her and give her emotional validation, social validation, financial investment, protection, right? But overstimulation leads to duplicity. So if she's not sexually satisfied by you, then eventually what's going to occur is either she's simply going to say that she wants what you do non-sexually enough, and then she's going to just be duplicitous. She may mistreat you. She may hold out on the coochie because she's not really satisfied or she's not sexually attracted to you on that level, which is something that can happen, playing games with it. And you can't play that whole your body's not your own thing, because that's not going with the laws of the land. And this day and age is considered rape, right? You might go to jail behind it. So you have to respect the boundaries. But what else could happen is, let's say you're in one of these situations and the woman is, let's say you're in one of these situations and the woman is with you while her cup is low, to fill her cup up, to get the validation that she feels like she deserves, that she desires, to quote unquote know her worth. And then as soon as she gets to a place where you filled her cup up to the brim, you're not the person she wants to pour it back out to with being feminine and submissive. So she may just sabotage the relationship. Daddy versus father effect comes in. She starts feeling like, oh, you're not my dad, you know, all this other shit. And then start getting disrespectful for you, damn near out the blue. You realize that if you were to take the things that you do off of the table that make her comfortable, whether it's accidentally or on purpose, that she will immediately leave you. And that even if you're doing those things, the sex may still dry up. Right? What are you going to do in that scenario? See, a lot of women use religion and spirituality to disguise their gentleman gigolo complex and their sexual duplicity. Right? When their cup gets low, they need validation to fill it back up. And oftentimes the church is a quick way to find a guy who's lying to himself about female sexual nature, who is blue pill, who doesn't know better. But sometimes a program is, program's necessary. And when we're looking at things from this perspective, what I say is this, man. I'd rather be the man who rules are broken for than the guy who rules are made for. That's where I'd rather choose to stand. Meet a woman, get to know her a little bit, deal with her. If she's worthy of more than that, then she can be elevated up a position. Right? She get elevated up a position, then she can work her way from concubine to wife. Right? Or she can work her way up from just a woman you dealt with to a woman who's that for you. But if she's not that, then don't put her in that position. If she can stay where she's at. Or if you're a man who doesn't want to move that way, you don't have to. You don't have to. But I'm just sharing a perspective for the logical, more red pill type of man. And maybe red pill is not the most accurate word, but for men with game. So this is Coach Brody on Concubine Culture. I'm out.